Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode. My name is Charles, and I am going to be your host today. My guest is Vitaly Khan, who is the founder of ProfitPad and a certified HubSpot strategist who specializes in helping scaling B2B, SaaS, and startups with HubSpot optimization. Now, Vitaly transforms messy processes into cleaner, smarter automation and dashboards that genuinely tell a story. Having started his career as a startup sales rep dealing with frustrating tools, he now leads a successful consulting agency that has empowered over 100 teams to grow confidently with HubSpot. It is so great to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Charles. Excited to chat.
Now, today we're going to be talking about CRM meets AI, building smarter automations and dashboards that actually tell a story. And I'm going to get right into it with my first question, which is why is it that a clean, structured data foundation, why is that so important to successful integrations of AI and CRM systems?
Yeah, AI, hot topic. Definitely something that you see a lot everywhere these days, and everybody's catching on, including ourselves.
Well, I had it told to me by somebody else who said if you lined up 10 CIOs and asked them what is the technology changing the world, 9 of them will say AI, and 1 of them lives under a rock.
That's right. Yeah, it seems like that's the headline these days. But with AI, yeah, just like any tool, like internet, right? It's not so much about using it as a magic wand, but properly appropriating it to what you already have. And so, an analogy that we could use with AI and CRM is I was thinking about it this morning. Think of your CRM as a fridge and AI as a chef. Now, if in your fridge all you have is expired milk and products that are ready to be taken out, right? No matter how fancy your chef is and the cookware that you have, um, as the saying goes, garbage in, garbage out, right? And so, in the same way, AI is just a tool that will amplify only what you have. So that's why it's so critical to make sure that all your ingredients in the fridge are up to date. And when it comes to the CRM, we're specifically talking about the architecture of your process, right? So that it's clean, it's followed through by your team, and the data that is being enriched, whether it's automatically or by your reps. Um, AI can't do everything for you. Like when reps add contacts into the CRM, AI can't exactly know whether they came from event, right, or some database unless you specify it and set it up in that way. And so that is really a foundational step we want to take first before we implement any AI.
I want to talk about the structured data because we talk about this, but not everybody is into the data, right? There's a lot of people they're just looking at the front end and they just enter the inputs and send it off, and they assume that just magic happens behind the scenes, right? So, what do we mean specifically when we talk about structured data, like the good, and what do we talk about when we say it's bad?
Yeah, quite a few points I can speak on here. Leadership executive level, they care a lot about data, obviously, because it helps them make decisions. What channels of marketing should we invest in, right? Who from our sales reps are performing the best? What do we know about our customers so that we can provide more targeted communications to them, right? That's what really leadership cares about. On the flip side, when you are on the front lines, let's say you're a sales rep, all you care about is how can I close this deal and what will help me along the way. And one of the roadblocks typically, or things that um, may be frustrating for a sales rep, is filling out data, right? And so that is where friction really comes up. And what we want to do is we want to find that balance um, between what is most impactful data that leadership is going to be able to use for their decision making, while also process that is simple and easy enough to follow that will not burden our team, right? And for that, specifically, is where consulting is really key, important to find that middle ground, somebody who can understand both worlds from executives' perspectives and the frontline perspective, and build something, orchestrate something that we call data structure, right? That is fully adaptable and fully interpretive, where we can make sense of it and we can scale it and we can improve upon it.
I have to imagine that when you're talking about clean structured data, we're also talking about uniform data, right?
Hmm.
Which is a problem I ran into specifically in a CRM where we had somebody that was entering their data. It was SQLs,
Yeah.
which is pretty simple, right? You would mark something as an SQL, except somebody else would actually spell it out.
Hmm.
And that actually broke it into two completely different paths. So that's got to be difficult, right? Getting all of your data uniform and getting everybody on board with using the same terminology and all of that throughout the process.
Yeah, that's the bane of our existence, honestly. You're just adding salt on a wound here, getting PTSD all over. Yeah, I think two of the main enemies of data would be the iconic open text and the lack of standardization, right? Whether it's typically state or region, right? And you see people filling it in as CA or California or capitalization of whatever you can think of, right? And then you just scratch your head and think, how can I standardize it, right? And typically by that time you already have a lot of data in place, right? So it might be a costly audit. And the second one is no less legendary, is the property catch them all as other, right? Uh, Something doesn't fit in there, in this category, nor that category. Let's just throw it into the other category, right? And you let it just grow with you. And at the end of the day, when you want to analyze data, you recognize that you just have a bunch of other inputs and you can't really make sense of it, right? So we want to really keep it clean, keep it clear.
I know what you mean with the other, because we had been using it for, I didn't realize how long we'd been using it for, or how many people would just default to it. And when we went to measure data, it took up, I think, 40% of all our inputs fell into the other category versus all the others. And it was because, I mean, it was something really simple that was marketing related. And it was like, where did you come from? I came from Facebook or I came from Instagram, but we didn't say Facebook.
Hmm.
We said Meta.
Hmm.
And everybody was like, I don't know what that is. I came from Facebook. And then they just, I'm from Facebook. And we realized our mistake a little too late, and then we had to go back and fix it. But yeah, I definitely see where this could become a huge problem, especially if you're dealing with like a legacy system. We've been around, been in business for 20 years, and that data shows that it's
Hmm.
20 years worth of backlog data.
Yeah, yeah, totally. You're not alone in this, Charles. This is like one of the most common issues we see. So yeah, that's very common.
Well, hopefully AI is going to fix a lot of this, right?
Yeah, you know what? Specifically, like talking about HubSpot, they recently released integration with ChatGPT directly, as well as they're throwing in and enabling more AI within the ecosystem of HubSpot. And so we're playing around with this, right? Um, there, I can see the world. They're still testing this out, where AI can specifically enrich data in a smart way. So, you know, when you have a contact in your CRM, it has a history where it came from, right? Different activities happening. And so we're at the point where AI can intelligently guess or roughly estimate where the contact may come from, what the original source is, right? And so if, let's say, you have messy data where you have not captured that information, right? You can tell AI to enrich the data to the best of its ability based on the historical record, right? And so that is one use case that could potentially solve for that.
We're all talking about dashboards, right? And could you give me like a real world example of like a CRM dashboard that has been enhanced by AI? Like, what kind of new strategic insights could I get from that?
Yeah, it's really cool. Still relatively new, so it's something that we are paving the way forward in. There's a couple that's given us really cool insights. For example, when a company, let's say, is selling multiple services or products, right? There's typically a lot of opportunity for extensions. A person purchasing product A might be interested down the road in product B or C, right? And when enough sales have been generated that there's a pattern evolved, right? The AI can look back and analyze and provide some prompts for the sales team, right? As an intelligence signal that this person is showing the signs that they might be interested in product B or C based on the historical data, right? So that's pretty cool because then you can proactively take advantage of that sales process, right? And hopefully generate more sales. Data enrichment is another one, right? We talked about the sources of contacts, right? And so AI can help you more accurately provide intelligence into what marketing channels to invest in, right? What specific campaigns maybe have been most effective, whether you run Facebook ads, social media, even if you have some self-sourced channels from reps that are doing like LinkedIn outreach, right? You can cross-compare them and ask AI which channel has been the most profitable for us. And AI can also cross compare multiple data points, such as not just how many deals we close the most from each channel, but also what's been the shortest sales cycle within each channel, what's taken the least number of activities. So, what's been kind of the easiest pathway for us to close deals, right? And so that is sort of the world that we are moving towards, where AI can really replace the job of an analyst down the road. Um, it just something that still we're at early phases of experimenting, right? But we already see that in a enterprise level where there's a lot of data and ChatGPT is enabled at scale. So, for example, for HubSpot enterprise clients, that is something that is becoming more and more feasible.
Interesting that you would say that specifically, that it's you're looking at a tool that might replace an analyst. Do you really think that like this could honestly replace an analyst? Do you think this is going to be a tool that an analyst would love to have with them to do their job better?
Yeah, I think you are definitely are onto something here, Charles. It might not necessarily replace the analyst because something that we are noticing more and more, AI cannot exactly replace the strategic thinking. It can replace tactical thinking and tactical hands-on implementation, like analyze the data for me, provide gaps in data, and then advice on what I can take on, right? But it cannot replace strategic thinking as a consultant or as somebody who sees the fuller picture. So what I mean by that is um, um, AI can only implement what you're providing it to do, but it can only think kind of 10 steps ahead of what is this specific task a part of a bigger picture of. That is more about the role of what we now call prompt engineer, right? Somebody who understands that um, this specific prompt, this specific ask is just a part of the fuller story, and they need to go guide and direct the ChatGPT or other AI tool to comprehensively tell that story, and then interpret it, or as well as guide it again further. Where do we go from there? How do we tie these pieces together? And so, yeah, I think it's again tool amplification really of the role so that the person can focus more on strategic work rather than tactical work.
I've heard once, and I've never forgotten it. Somebody said to me, "Data without action is just trivia. It's fun to know, but if you're not going to do anything with that data, then it's just that. It's just something fun to know." I've discovered that with a lot of the reports, because a lot of these reports used to take a really long time for me to generate. Now with AI, it happens really fast. I can feed those reports into AI and gain greater insight because it's really good at pattern recognition. So it just understands the patterns and then gives me better numbers. But then it can't really do anything with that. I have to then take that information and figure out what's the next step.
Right.
What am I going to actually do with this now that I have it?
Mhm.
I think that's where that human touch is still going to be a pretty big part of this whole process.
Yeah, on the same page with you as well. Yeah, AI can tell you that it takes 10 calls to generate one deal, but it's not going to go ahead and complete those 10 calls. We are getting to that place, right? But you still got to direct the AI to complete each step of the way, right? Again, the direction and guidance needs to come from a human.
There's another aspect to a CRM that I'm curious about, and of course, I'm going to be curious about it. I work for a document company, so I have to ask, how do you see AI transforming document-driven processes within a CRM system, like proposals, contracts, e-signature workflows, and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So great point. There are two places where it's really applicable and helpful. And there is you can call it like a fragmented way of using AI within the contracts, which is more of a use case specific. Let's say you work with a distinct client that is looking for more custom types of contract clauses, right? That's where you tap into AI and you really consult with them, right? So they act as a second brain, right? And so then in that way, it customizes the proposal or a contract, right? And here you go, it spits it out for you. The second approach is more of a holistic where you can implement AI at more scale where instead of what took you before 10 steps, now it takes 5 steps, such as we've seen it happen and we've implemented that ourselves. The deal moves to contract send, or we get to the place where client requests a contract. What happens next? You manually have to draft the contract. You manually fill out the fields like first name, last name, company address, the amount, and so on. Send it over. You have to follow up with the person, or you have a meeting, right? All of that really is a lot of manual input. Nowadays, it could all be simplified where the whatever contractual software company uses, right, can pull the information directly from CRM, right, and automatically generate a contract with the predefined fields. So all you got to do is just make sure that it's all accurate, customize it as you need, and send it off. That saves a whole lot of time on manual input, right? And again, also smaller things like prompting you to follow up with that person, right? Instead of you thinking, who do I need to reach out to that I have a contractual follow up with to do. So things like that really save a lot of time when you think about multiple contracts that you have to manually uh, fill out data. That saves you pretty much practically an admin role here.
All right, I'm going to back us up to when we were talking about data and how data without an action is just trivia. Because I also wanted to talk about building these dashboards, because I know that's one of the things that you do. You help teams build dashboards, and I've had somebody help me build a dashboard, and it was fine, but I mean it was very, very data oriented, right? It was really good at giving me numbers, but it wasn't really good at giving me much more than that, just numbers. So how do you actually build dashboards for teams that do more than just data, that actually will help guide decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point, Charles. And typically, when somebody is asking for a dashboard, right, what they're looking for is clarity of mind, sense of control, right, and understanding how things are working, if they are working, right? And so, before we typically jump into the dashboard building, we ask and take a step back and ask more fundamental questions, such as, um, is your team following the process? Is there a process in the first place, right? How confident are you in it? Do you collect sufficient data in order for you to reflect that data in the dashboard? Because if any of the answers to these questions are no, right, we gotta pull back and we gotta set the right foundation, right, for the company. And most of the time, that's really what we need to do first of all as a step before we even go into any dashboard building. But if the company is in the right place and they just need the right skill to put together data intelligence to make sense of the data, that becomes pretty simple, right? As long as we have all the right pieces in place, we put it forward. And from there, the question is, how do we make sense of data? So that's something that we as consultants, right, can do really well, or as managers, right, because we look into the gaps, we look into some inconsistency in data, right, rep by rep, who has different performances and what the outputs and inputs are, and then we provide then feedback based on that. So you can correct performance or learn something from that, right? Or we need to invest into this channel, this tool, and so on. Um, so yeah, there are two sides of the story: the foundation of the data before report is built, and then making sense of the report, which is input, output, everything in between, understanding the gaps.
That's a lot of work for consulting.
Sounds simple now, yeah, but then when you get into it, it's it's really can get messy, but it's fun type of work. We like problem solving, and we like digging in.
I get it. I love a good puzzle and I love a good challenge. So I absolutely know what you mean.
Yeah.
Uh, when we spoke last time, we talked about fragmented AI and holistic AI.
hmm
And I want to go back to that and talk about that because I thought that was really fascinating. So, what is the difference between fragmented and holistic AI workflows, and how do you choose the right one?
Yeah, definitely. So right now, everybody's hyped up about, yeah, certainly implementing AI. Um, and I think we want to be thoughtful about how we do that, because AI can be scalable at some places, and in some cases it's not. It's really one off, right? And so for ourselves, what we also find is AI can backfire when you communicate by amplifying all your communications through AI. It may come across as inhuman, ingenuine, right? And put some people off, especially when there's abundance of AI nowadays. People are looking for real connection, because I know when you put an effort into it, it means you genuinely care, right? So we don't actually want to replace everything with AI. We still want to communicate our values. We want to communicate in a casual language. I think we've all seen those glorified longer dashes when people put out the posts on LinkedIn or send the messages. And I think that's kind of our AI signal, like, okay, this is not really coming from person, right? And so what we are practicing is distinguishing between what is still worthwhile keeping as more so AI amplified, AI enabled, such as fragmented, and used as a one off case, and what can be actually replaced by AI so that we can focus on things that matter to us. So, a typical example for us is we use daily AI to make our communication clearer. So I'll put in a prompt like, this client has these challenges. We are providing these solutions. Help us communicate it in a simple way, effective way, right? So we have already text written there and the solution, but AI just amplifies what we want to communicate, right? In this way. And so we don't really use it all the time because each case is different, each client is different, right? But in this way, it helps us communicate more effectively, more clearly, more directly. That's probably the most common use case. Some other use cases are for specific challenges when we come across on projects, whether it's like technical, like this is how I think through this problem, and AI provides some feedback for us as well, right? Again, doesn't happen all the time. That's why we cannot really replicate that at scale. It's more so us as consultants using AI as a second brain on those one-off cases. So that's sort of a fractional use of AI. When it comes to holistic one, it's more so looking at our processes overall and thinking what are some processes, right, that we could implement AI in, embed it, so that we can again focus on more strategic pieces of our work. We talked about contracts, right? That's something that could be enabled by AI. Um, we can think about also prompts by AI to help us proactively follow up with people. So, for example, if let's say as a sales rep, you manage and work on multiple deals, but then some deals inevitably may slip through the crack, right? Unless you remember, you will forget. And so, when AI can give you that prompt, could be even simple like automation, right? Set up as a if then condition. If the deal hasn't been reached out in 3 days, follow up, right? So there's not really need for AI. Things like that, where we can embed either automation or AI into our workflow to help us stay on top of things.
It's interesting. I just happen to think that when we talk about scalability, and then we start introducing AI into it, we start having that conversation of how is AI going to play a role in this before I have to either just hand off control to the AI or
Yeah.
hire another human. For example, there are new AI agents that are coming out right now that'll actually make phone calls on your behalf. And I thought, well, where would that actually come in handy? And then I realized if you're a sales rep, you have to make 50 calls today. There's only so many hours in the day. And you just need one person to stay on the phone with you for 30 minutes, and now your whole day is blown and you're not going to get to them all.
Yeah.
So if AI is helping you with that, that's great. But then as that increases from 50 to 100 to 200 now because business is going well, does the AI scale and you're still the person, or is it time to get more people and have each person with their own AI assistant so they can all keep up with demand?
That's right. Yeah, it's a very interesting use case that you're bringing up. I would say it's 100% effective on the customer support side, right? And we already see it in chatbots, right? I think many of us is pretty frustrated and we just tell it like, talk to a human, right? But as AI becomes more intelligent and we can provide it with more prompts as well as more guidance, it will become quite feasible to completely implement, right? Unless there's specific edge cases. And the customer support is one of those that is gonna last and is gonna stay. But then there's also tricky ones such as sales calls. Why I'm saying that, especially when it comes to like outbound inquiries, people or AI agents calling into the businesses. Right now, the space is not as crowded, but there will come a day where it will be, just like how we saw that with the emails. There was a day when emails were novel, right? And so when you get an email, you get excited, like, "Oh, somebody's reaching out to me! Oh, what a treat!" Nowadays, it's all spam, right? And people,
Nowadays, I will blink and I have 100 emails
that's
suddenly
right.
in.
That's right. And so I can see that space being also overcrowded, and perhaps there will be regulations around that, right? Because it is an ethical question in it too. And so,
I
yeah,
I honestly hadn't thought of that, of the terror of getting phone calls at the same rate that you get email spam, because now these bots can make calls
yeah, it's
and
impressive.
it just suddenly happens at massive scale.
Yeah, I think that's probably inevitable until the regulations come into place, right? Because I mean, it's such a power tool that you can easily scale, right? But again, I think the question comes to it's this market is going to be oversaturated at some point. So right now, people are probably taking advantage of it.
What about AI trust? Is I don't know if that's an issue that comes with having your AI built into a CRM where you have to trust that your AI is going to be accurate, but you also want you want your users and you want your consumers to trust you as a brand. So, are we telling people that it is AI, or are we keeping that more to ourselves and just saying, "Oh no, humans are doing all of this," even though we totally know that AI is playing a big role in helping?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Another ethical question, right? Transparency is how we humans, right, sense honesty, sense trust, that we don't need to hide anything. So I think it's going to play a big role in it. The genuineness, again, right, in communication. So it's subtle, but I think it matters. And that's how probably brands are going to be able to communicate um, their care. Yeah. And the small details, they matter.
All right, I got one last question for you, and we can have fun with this one. And don't name anybody specific. We'll keep that to ourselves. But I want to talk about some of the common pitfalls that you've seen teams encounter when they're trying to adopt AI for a CRM management system. What are some of those pitfalls you've seen, and did they actually manage to overcome them?
Yeah. So I'm gonna name 5 of your clients, Charles, that I worked with. I'm kidding. Yeah. No, it's still relatively new, so because of that, it's trial by error at this point. But going back to the beginnings of our conversation, there are companies that are eager to adopt AI because that gets them right the competitive edge. But at the same time, I would say embedding AI could be both challenge or invitation. Challenge for those companies that when they embed AI, they realize that garbage in, garbage out. It's not really providing them with intelligent analytics, right? And so with that, there is even greater level of urgency that they need to get their stuff together. They need to go back to the beginning, to the roots, and establish clear processes for their team, where data flows, where it's enabling you to make sense of your data, right? And then on the other side, on the other hand, there is those companies that have done that work, and now they take an advantage of AI because it will amplify what they're already doing, the analytics, the workflows, right? Replacing the processes that are already working, but making it just more efficient for their team. And so we've seen those use cases, yeah, with contracts being automated, with follow-ups that are intelligent, that are providing value to the clients, right, that are helpful, with the reporting as well, where the prompt may be given to a rep that is perhaps less productive than usual this week, based on the benchmarks, right? So small things like that, where it's really helpful and providing the intelligence for the entire team.
Vitaly Khan, you are the founder of ProfitPad and a certified HubSpot strategist. I've got links to your website and all of your social media down in the description below. So everybody watching and listening, I do recommend going down there, checking that out, and let them know Chuck sent you.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Yeah.
Vitaly, thank you so much for joining. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, same with me, Charles. Thanks for the invitation. Look forward to more conversations. It's been fun.